Hi, this is Hanna Podbielski, and this is my squat lab from the anterior view. First, we're going to separate my squat into 3 separate phases: the loading phase, the transition phase, and the unloading phase. The loading phase is when my knees are straight and I go downwards into my squat. So as we can see here, both of my knees are fully extended, meaning that they're straight, and this loading phase goes all the way until I'm down at the lowest point in my squat. Just right about there. And then next is the transition phase, and the transition phase is when I transition from the unloading to the loading phase. Loading to the unloading phase. And during this phase, there's relatively minimum motion that I am doing. This is where I'm switching from going down to pushing off. So that phase is right here. As you can see, there was minimal movement, and my knees are still fully flexed as far as they can go. The next is the unloading phase, and during this phase I go from the bottom of my squat all the way back up, and my knees will end in full extension. So that would look like this. I come all the way up and my knees are extended, as we see right here. So now that we have 3 distinct phases, we can go into breaking down the compensations that I am doing while I am squatting. So just rewinding the video. The first compensation that I noticed right off the bat without even squatting is that my right foot is turned outwards. And as the video goes on, almost right away, like even before I go into my loading, my left foot will also evert, and you can actually see this on camera. It happens almost right away into the loading phase, and the area that we are focusing on is right here, maybe a little bit lower, right here. So if you watch in this area, we can see almost right away that my foot will turn out. And what I'm going to do to show you how soon it turns out into that loading phase, I'll put a timer up here. So as I begin going into my loading phase, I'm going to put a circle around my foot so you know where to watch. As I go down, this foot comes out, and I begin to squat down in the loading phase. So as we're watching the clock, rewinding a little bit, you can see that almost right after I begin my loading phase, that foot turns out. Not even a half a second into the loading phase, and my foot already turns out. And my foot eversion on both sides can be due to an overactive soleus muscle or maybe an underactive medial hamstring muscle. All right. And now, looking at some other things that I was noticing, we can put a line through the middle of my body. Let me redo that so it's straighter. There we go. So this is my midline, and as I go into my loading phase, as I get to the end of it, I veer off the midline and I list towards the left. So there, I'm leaning towards my left leg. As we can see, I have come off of the midline. So we see right here, my head is off the midline, and also my legs are unequal on the midline as well. And this could be because of overactive piriformis muscles or an underactive gluteus medius. Another thing that I see in this loading and transition phase is that my left knee is also turned outward in comparison to my right knee. And this can be seen by showing some angles on it. So if I just work up and in, see there's about 26 degrees right there. If we undo it and try it on the other leg, we bring it up and in. It's a little further. It's about 31 degrees, so that means I am definitely turning that knee outwards, and I am definitely having a asymmetrical weight shift. And the knee turning outwards, as we see, as we see right here, that could be the result of an overactive biceps femoris muscle or an underactive gluteus maximus muscle. And then another thing that I was noticing, my arms seem to fall forward when I am doing my squat. So we're going to rewind a little bit. So theoretically, my arms should be able to stay on a line as I'm squatting down. And let's just see how they fall forward when I do this. So they stay relatively on the line. My left arm seems to fall off of it a little bit. The line I drew isn't the straightest. As we see right here, my arm has fallen off the line. But another thing that I want to point out is during that loading phase, my elbows have gone into flexion as opposed to them being mostly straight. And we can see that as we come up in the unloading phase as well. They're in flexion and right about here. So we're going to watch the elbow joint here and here. As they come up, they end up straightening, which means that they were falling forward. And then arms falling forward could be due to overactive latissimus dorsi muscle or underactive rotator cuff muscles. And that's all the compensations that I found for my anterior squat.